You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Ever find yourself scrolling through a brand new app or maybe booking a flight on a fresh website and you just get this creeping sense of déjà vu?
Oh, yeah, all the time, actually.
Right. You look at the layout and think, hang on a second, I swear I've been here before. Every single button and drop-down menu and chunk of text is starting to look exactly the same. It is like the entire internet is being slowly painted in this featureless beige wash.
That is a very accurate way to describe it.
Well, we have a massive stack of articles and research papers on the desk to unpack this exact phenomenon. We are going to explore why artificial intelligence is turning interface design into a statistical average. Plus, how the absolute smartest designers are fighting back with tactile empathy, and why major corporate brands are making some genuinely bizarre visual choices. I am your resident vocal technologist, so let us look under the hood.
Yeah, the quirky, unpredictable corners of the digital world are absolutely being smoothed over into something highly standardized. I mean, we like things to be organized, but we are reaching a point of total visual saturation. Some designers are even starting to refer to modern interfaces as little boxes made of ticky-tacky.
Which is a brilliant reference to that classic folk song about suburban houses all looking identical and being made of cheap materials. It translates perfectly to what we are seeing online.
Exactly.
And I really want to pull apart why that actually happens. Like, why does AI make everything look like a generic corporate brochure?
It really comes down to the fundamental mechanics of how these models are trained. You know, they ingest massive data sets of existing user interfaces.
Right, so they are just looking at what is already out there.
Spot on. When you prompt an AI to design a login screen, it does not actually think creatively. It calculates the most mathematically common solution based on millions of previous login screens.
Ah, so it is literally just a statistical average.
Yeah, it produces a polished, perfectly acceptable statistical average of common user interface elements, which works fine for simple utilities, but for complex products that need to solve specific user problems, well, it falls entirely flat. It just lacks domain knowledge and real-world observation.
And yet, the sheer amount of money
Yeah.
pouring into this is staggering. Like, just look at Gamma Imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
They raised $68 million to add AI image generation to their platform, squarely taking on giants like Canva and Adobe. I mean, they are valued at over $2 billion, aiming entirely at knowledge workers who need visual tools but do not possess any actual design skills.
And that creates a massive tension in the industry. You have these platforms churning out generic average visuals at incredible scale.
Yeah.
But corporate brands cannot survive on statistical averages. They require strict, unwavering adherence to their specific brand identity.
Which brings me to something I saw in our research stack. Webflow acquired the start of Vidoso. And my first thought was, oh, just another generation tool. But it is actually about enforcing those brand rules, is it not?
That is the entire strategy right there. Relying purely on unconstrained AI for your design ignores messaging strategies and design systems entirely.
Right.
So Vidoso adds a context layer so the AI actually follows the brand rules rather than just guessing.
Because asking a basic AI to design your website is like asking a robot chef to make you the perfect meal based on every recipe ever written.
That is a great way to put it.
You do not get a beautiful fusion dish. The robot just hands you a featureless, beige nutrient brick. But I do have to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
If everyone suddenly has access to rapid app builders like Astrio, which literally transforms casual ideas into fully functional, scalable applications, does this not just accelerate the death of unique web design? Like, are we not just hitting fast forward on the beigification of the internet?
Well, that is the logical fear. However, what we are actually witnessing is a fundamental shift in where the value lies.
Okay.
The value in design has shifted entirely away from generation and towards curation. The industry is actually calling this the AI sandwich.
Okay, the AI sandwich. Walk me through the layers of this sandwich.
So the human writes the brief. That is your top slice of bread.
Right.
The AI generates the filling, which is the raw output. But the most crucial part is the bottom slice.
Which is the human again.
Exactly. The human curates, refines, and corrects that output. If you write a generic brief, you get a terrible filling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you accept the AI output without curating it, you get generic work devoid of personal expertise.
So if the AI is handling the filling, generating the beige breaks, what is the actual role of the human designer now?
The traditional boundaries are blurring completely. We are moving away from distinct silos of designers and product managers and developers. Instead, the workforce is splitting into three archetypes of product builders.
Interesting. What are they?
First, you have your block-shaped generalists who have broad skills across multiple disciplines. Then you have your deep T specialists.
Let us pause on deep T for the folks listening who might not be familiar with the agency jargon. That means someone who has a broad, shallow understanding of many things, which is the horizontal bar of the T, but incredibly deep focused expertise in one specific area, which is the vertical stem.
Right.
Spot on.
Yes.
And the third archetype is adaptable graduates who enter the workforce entirely unconstrained by legacy workflows.
Because they do not have to unlearn old software habits.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Together, these builders are transitioning from being makers of outputs to directors of intent.
Directors of intent, I like that.
Yeah, because AI can wireframe a screen in seconds. But AI cannot navigate ambiguity. It cannot advocate for human needs, and most importantly, it cannot exercise diplomacy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, an AI cannot look at a terrible brief from a client and have the guts to push back and say, mate, this is a fundamentally flawed idea.
Right. AI optimizes for immediate output, not long-term sustainable outcomes. In fact, analysts point out that structural ignorance and rigid agency hierarchies are far more damaging to creativity than automation.
You know, invisible class structures within agencies and ageism and sexism, all of these systemic issues drown out junior voices and kill creative collaboration long before an algorithm even gets involved.
Wow. Okay, well, here is where it gets properly weird, though. We talk about these AI models as if they are omnipotent.
We do.
But when you look closely at leading large language models like Gemini, researchers have identified what they call an iconic blind spot.
Yes, this is a critical failure point.
I want to get into this because it is fascinating.
Basically, these models lack true spatial and physical understanding because they do not exist in the real world. They are not embodied.
I read this and reacted with just genuine, pure amusement.
It is quite funny when you think about it.
You are telling me we have multi-billion-dollar language models that can write complex Python code and pass the bar exam, but fundamentally do not understand how gravity works or how three-dimensional space functions.
It is true. They are top-heavy symbolic systems, so they fail at physical continuity.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning they cannot maintain a coherent special model in their memory. They fail at basic physics. And they fail at reversibility of thought.
Which means they cannot backtrack.
Exactly. They cannot easily backtrack their reasoning if they hit a physical logical wall.
That is wild.
They can describe the grain of the wood on a door with incredible poetic fluency, but they have absolutely no physical intuition of what it means to actually walk through it.
Which completely explains why designing interfaces for AI is so incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
You're trying to build a bridge between a human who lives in a physical world and a machine that only understands text prediction.
Yes, and we are seeing some durable interface patterns emerge to solve this.
Like what?
Well, as AI moves from simple chat boxes to agentic systems that orchestrate complex tasks in the background, the biggest user experience challenge is balancing transparency with cognitive load. Like, how much do you actually tell the user?
Right, because you do not want to overwhelm them with a massive wall of code showing every single calculation.
Exactly. The most reliable solution emerging is the collapsed expandable action log.
Okay, so it hides the messy work by default.
Yes, but lets you click in to see exactly what the AI did step by step if you want to.
That makes sense.
However, capability awareness, which means helping the user understand what the AI can and cannot actually do, still remains a totally unsolved problem.
So AI does not understand the physical world yet. But human designers understand the psychological world entirely too well, and they have been using that to manipulate us.
They certainly have.
Which brings us to the legal fallout happening. Look at Adobe.
Ah, yes, you are referring to the corporate upheavals regarding dark patterns.
I am indeed. First, we have Adobe Chief Executive Shantanu Narayan announcing he will step down after a very long tenure at the helm.
A tenure where he led their massive transition to subscriptions and pushed them heavily into AI.
Yeah, and the market reacted instantly with shares dropping 7%. But the larger story surrounding Adobe involves their massive settlement with the Department of Justice over cancellation fees.
It is a $75 million penalty.
Which is huge. The Department of Justice accused them of hiding hefty cancellation fees in the fine print and intentionally making it difficult for customers to cancel their Creative Cloud subscriptions.
And on top of the penalty, they have to provide another $75 million in free services.
Now, obviously, we are not taking sides here. Adobe completely maintains their innocence and says they've already made changes to clarify those fees. We are just reporting what is in the documents. But let us talk about how this actually works in practice.
Well, it brings us straight to the psychology of dark patterns.
Right.
These are intentional design tactics that manipulate users into taking unwanted actions like subscribing or buying or sharing data, all for the benefit of the business.
I mean, think about the last time you tried to cancel a digital subscription. You click Manage Plan, then you get a pop-up warning you about losing your saved files.
Always.
Then you click Cancel anyway, and then only in microscopic gray text at the very bottom of the fourth screen does it mention a penalty fee. It is literally exploiting your cognitive exhaustion.
And regulators are finally stepping in. Dark patterns are no longer just an ethical concern or an example of poor design.
They are a serious legal liability.
Exactly. Professionals are now required to navigate this through entirely transparent design.
I just have to make a cheeky observation here, though.
Go on.
I find it deeply ironic that we have all these giant tech companies racing to build totally frictionless AI to generate infinite content.
Yeah.
But the moment you want to cancel a $20 monthly subscription, they intentionally build the most friction-filled labyrinthian interface legally possible, because apparently that is where we are.
The contrast is definitely stark. And while software giants are facing these massive identity and legal crises, we're also seeing some wild, very physical brand redesigns that are completely dividing audience.
How about rebrand roulette? I love this part. Let us look at the Tennessee Titans.
That was a big one.
They released a new logo. They ditched their iconic flame motif and went with a brighter, simplified design and swapped the dark navy for a light blue. And the fans absolutely roasted it.
The public reaction was intense. I mean, visual identity is deeply emotional for sports fans. Any simplification is often viewed as a regression.
I was reading the comments and I was sympathizing so heavily with whatever poor designer had to read those. Fans were comparing it to a generic electric vehicle logo.
Wow.
They were joking that a child could have drawn it. It was brutal.
It really was. And Firefox is doing something similar.
Oh yeah, what is going on there?
They teased a brand refresh on Instagram with a logo that completely drops the iconic fox. It is literally just a plain purple orb.
Wait, a purple orb, that is it.
Yeah. They promise the fox will return soon, likely as a new mascot named Kit with a visible face.
Okay.
But it is part of a broader move towards softer pastel aesthetics. We are seeing it everywhere, actually.
Like with Snickers, right?
Exactly. Snickers introduced a custom typeface called Snickers Sans, designed by Studio Drama.
And it comes in these display styles called Epic and Everyday,
Yeah.
which subtly modernizes the brand while keeping the recognizable rhythm of that classic word mark.
Yes. And then on the hardware side, the rumors around the upcoming iPhone Pro models are wild.
Oh yeah. Supposedly they are removing the standard black option entirely,
Which is a huge shift.
in favor of bold colors like brown or purple or burgundy. Plus they are unifying the rear design to ditch the two-tone look and shrinking the dynamic island by 35%. Why is everyone making these massive aesthetic leaps?
Well, all of these changes are attempts to stand out in a visually crowded environment. But the ultimate antidote to both the soulless AI averages and the roasted corporate rebrands is something much deeper.
Which is
Tactile empathy.
designing with extreme tangible human empathy. I want to explore this.
Let us consider designing for anxiety. Most people experience anxiety, which reduces our cognitive bandwidth and makes processing information difficult.
Absolutely.
Designers can create calmer experiences by looking way beyond basic compliance. Imagine you are buying concert tickets, and a giant red timer starts ticking down from 5 minutes.
Oh, I hate that. It is so stressful.
Right. Time limits and countdowns are incredibly destabilizing for an anxious user. If you are building an interface, you must avoid unnecessary time pressure, or at least give the user meaningful control over the timing.
That makes so much sense. And it leads to one of the most incredible case studies we came across. The creative studio, something familiar, redesigned the brand identity for a nonprofit called Onvero.
Yes.
But the chief executive of Onvero, Sandy Wasmer, is blind
Which required the agency to completely adapt their entire design workflow.
because they could not use standard visual presentations on a screen.
No, they had to develop a shared language and non-visual communication.
The result was this incredibly tactile, inclusive brand system. It features heavily embossed materials and an easily traceable physical logo and sensory-friendly presentations.
They proved that centering accessibility from the very beginning does not limit creativity. It completely enhances it.
Really does.
Another beautiful physical example is the Goodnight Light children book created by Plenitude.
Oh, I loved this one.
It uses glow-in-the-dark printing, so it only becomes readable in the dark.
And it actually doubles as a bedside lamp to help kids overcome their fear of darkness while saving energy. That is just brilliant.
It is. But empathy also extends to the tiny, microscopic details of digital interfaces that just make them feel better to use.
Let us translate some of this developer jargon for the listeners then.
Yeah.
What do we mean when we talk about concentric border radius?
It is the mathematical relationship between curves.
Okay.
If you draw a square box with rounded corners and then put a smaller button inside it, you cannot just use the same curve for both.
Why not?
Because if the outer box has a curve of 10 pixels and the padding is 5 pixels, the inner button needs a curve of exactly 5 pixels. If you do not do that math, the human eye instantly registers the design as cheap or wrong, even if the user does not consciously know why.
And what about tabular numbers? That just means keeping the physical spacing of digits consistent, right? So when a timer counts down, the text does not aggressively jump left and right on the screen.
Yes, exactly. Also using CSS transitions instead of keyframe animation so that movements are interruptible.
Meaning if a user clicks away midway through an animation, the interface should respond instantly and reverse direction.
Right. It should not force them to watch the animation finish before they can click something else.
Wait, I also saw a massive debate about managing icon component sizes. Something about size variant properties versus instance swapping to select glyphs.
Oh, that one.
What does that actually mean for non-designers?
It is basically a debate about how to organize massive design libraries. Do you attach a size rule to every single individual icon, which completely clutters up your asset panel?
Okay.
Or do you use a universal wrapper and just swap the picture inside it?
I see.
Both have major trade-offs between how easy it is for the user to navigate and how hard it is for the development team to manage.
Which brings us to motion tokens.
Yes, motion tokens. They use JSON code, which is essentially a simple text list of rules to standardize motion across an entire interface.
So it covers duration and easing curves, like cubic Bezier coordinates, in one unified system.
Precisely. Instead of different developers hard-coding their own personal definition of what fast or slow means, everyone uses shared semantic names.
It is exactly like stage directions for a play. You write the script so the digital button knows how to behave. You make sure it does not dramatically sprint onto the screen when it was supposed to casually stroll in.
That is a perfect analogy. It gives the interface a consistent, predictable personality. And this is where human designers truly outpace machines' empathy and accessibility and sensory engagement.
Yeah.
These require an understanding of human fragility. That is something an algorithm simply cannot compute.
So let's contrast that beautiful physical work with the flood of digital automation by looking at the incredible array of projects currently defining the industry.
There is a lot happening.
First off, we have officially entered the golden age of women's sports branding. It has fully transitioned from just a growth opportunity into a massive cultural movement driving record-breaking attendance.
We are also seeing physical galleries like Define in Mexico City laying the groundwork for contemporary Mexican design.
Pushing it into the spotlight over traditional craftsmanship.
Exactly. And Jony Ive, the former Apple design chief, is applying his minimalist principles to luxury projects outside of tech.
Like what?
He designed a rostrum for Christie Auction House and the interior of Ferrari first electric car and even a sailing lantern for Bermuda.
Taking that intense Apple focus on materials and applying it to a lantern is wild.
It really is. In terms of visual identity systems, Art and Graft did incredible work for Line Mobility, which is a proposed elevated transit system.
Oh, I saw that. They used realistic 3D visuals to bridge the gap between high-level strategy and reality, making a highly futuristic concept feel entirely achievable.
And HEX did something similar for Grafana, building their brand around these modular geometric blocks and scanning lines that perfectly map out how their actual software works.
Craig Boylan Creation Bowman is also fascinating. It is a Bauhaus-inspired plastic character he built that is so flexible, he uses it for everything from brewery branding to science illustrations.
Pop culture is delivering some fantastic design moments too. Steven Spielberg Disclosure Day poster has this incredibly subtle, detail-rich design.
Then there are the Little Finder Guy 5K wallpapers.
Those are great.
Apple promoted the MacBook on TikTok with his super cute character inspired by the classic Mac Finder icon, and a developer turned them into colorful desktop backgrounds.
And the Oscar nominees for production design are out, including Sinners and Frankenstein and Hamnet and Marty Supreme and One Battle After Another.
Plus, there is a brilliant collection of 30 minimal logo concepts circulating, bold monograms and simple icon marks. It is an absolute masterclass in restraint.
But then you have to contrast that careful human restraint with the sheer avalanche of AI tools hitting the market.
It is genuinely overwhelming. Let us group some of these together. You have Laid for making multilingual interactive videos. ThumbFast for generating YouTube thumbnails while keeping your facial likeness perfectly consistent.
Buttony is offering animated web buttons. Crano does rapid professional video and image generation.
Tim Video creates TikTok and Reels ads without you ever needing to touch a camera.
Vimo AI is using Seedance technology for high-resolution video clips.
And Orange Labs lets you literally talk to your data to create customizable visualizations. I mean, I just marvel at the sheer volume of output.
It is staggering.
We have somehow reached an era where you can generate a full marketing campaign video and all without ever picking up a camera.
Yeah.
But you still need a human sitting there to decide if it actually looks any good.
Exactly. The generation is automated, but the taste, the curation, and the empathy remain entirely human.
But despite all the automated generation and the ticky-tacky boxes and the statistical averages, the most exciting design work being done is still rooted in physical, tactile human experience.
Without a doubt.
Whether that is embossing a logo for a blind chief executive or mathematically perfecting the curve of a button so it just feels right. As your vocal technologist, I love seeing the human element hold the line. Which leaves you with one final thought to mull over.
Where's that?
As our digital interfaces become completely invisible and increasingly proactive, doing things for us before we even ask, how will we go about designing the personality of the software that runs our lives?
Spoken Tech for your ears.